Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome back to your main source for fantasy hockey and degenerate gambling news. It is the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, Friday edition, with your boy Big Flip Livingstone, and of course, as always, my esteemed co-host, Mr. Steele Roden. There's a lot to get to on today's episode, including injuries, return from injuries, and everything in between. We're taking a look at our fantasy teams. Let's get right to it, people. Thank you for joining us.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You heard the music, and you know what time it is. It's time for the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, Friday edition. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. We are here Monday to Friday across all platforms you find your favorite and hottest content. So thank you so much for continuing to feed us the feedback, the subscribes, and all the reviews that we need to continue to feed you with your fantasy takes. Steele, speaking of fantasy takes, I hope you're ready, my friend, because today there is a lot to get to. We're going to take a look at how we're doing in our fantasy leagues. We're going to look at maybe some trades that you should be considering. It's a good time of year, people, for taking some shots at some trades, but also there's injuries. There's return from plays. Alexis Lafreniere is getting demoted, now a healthy scratch. You have a lot to say about that. I think today is going to be a spicy episode, Steele, because also we know these Colorado Avalanche have a lot going on with the injuries. We're going to get to that. Big time bets at the end of the show. Let's kick it off, my friend. Look, also, I didn't even mention it. Alexander Barkov is returning from injury. That's another thing that you can consider for an impact over the next few weeks to your team. But I alluded to it. Alexis Lafreniere, let's hear what you have to say. I know you have something in the barrel here. Healthy scratch Thursday. Gerard Gallant says a lot about this player. What do you have to say about what's going on in New York before we get to a lot of other fantasy news?
Yeah, well, I think it's the right call from Gerard Gallant and the New York Rangers organization to healthy scratch him or even send him down to the fourth line because he just hasn't been good enough. And I've been hard on this guy. And for me, I will say the one thing I do like about Lafreniere is how physical he is. At such a young age, I really like that part of his game and the physicality that he brings. But this guy dominated the QMJHL for 3 years straight. 80 points, 103 points, and 112 points in 55 games. Absolutely incredible. The number one overall pick back in 2020. He's been in the league for 3 years now. And there have been slow improvements over the last 3 years. You know, his rookie season, 2020, COVID happens. Okay, you get a little bit of a pass there. Sophomore season, second season in the year, slight improvements again, but still some growing pains as we've seen him struggle with. And then now in his third season in the NHL again, when you're the first overall pick and you're only at 17 points in 35 games, he is on pace to beat his career high from last year. Nonetheless, it's just the slow pace of how the improvements is going right now that is really frustrating to see for a lot of his fans and the organization for the New York Rangers. And this goes back to that mock trade that I sent you a while ago about how Alexis Lafreniere could be a piece in the New York Rangers acquiring Patrick Kane. And we know that Patrick Kane has been linked to the Rangers as well. That could be a key piece. I even just saw a tweet a couple hours ago where teams have been calling the Rangers on Alexis Lafreniere. Now, nothing is imminent. Nothing is too serious as of right now, but he could be a piece in acquiring Patrick Kane, or
I could see it.
Offensive piece as well for these New York Rangers, because it's obvious they want to win now. They believe they have a good enough team. I believe they have a good enough team, but that kid line, like I mentioned a couple episodes ago, they can't be the kid line forever. They got to step up and do a little bit more, and that starts with Alexis Lafreniere.
There's a lot to unpack with the implications that this player can have, not only on the Rangers and their success via a trade. You and I want to talk about taking a shot on some trades at this time of the fantasy season. We're going to get to that. And maybe Alexis Lafreniere is a guy that maybe you can buy low on right now. He has not performed. Steele, like, let's talk about that right off the top. You've already mentioned it. 5 goals, 12 assists this season. But my thing with this player, he's only 21 years of age. And does he need to be better? 100%. Has he been disappointing? 100%. And maybe, in fact, the most disappointing point of his shot here with the Rangers, Gerard Gallant has given him some options with some really good players. Like,
Yeah.
look, if you can't get it done with the Mika Zibanejads and the Artemi Pernarins of the world, I'm a little bit concerned at what you might get for, a potential trade for this player. But I'll say this, you better be keeping your eye on this situation, because if Alexis Lafreniere is going to be moved, that might be, we've talked about, change of scenery might all these players need to be to wake up and get it
Yeah.
done. Hey, 21, I'm not ready to give up on him yet. He is now benched, a healthy scratch. Gallant sending a message here, Steele. Bottom line, he needs to be better. And if you're the New York Rangers front office, you're not looking at moving him right now because his value is perhaps at an all-time low. But let's see what happens here, because you said it. He can be that physical edge, and he dominated the queue. What more importantly for me, he looked like a man amongst boys in that World Junior while he was
Yeah.
healthy. So we know he's a special player. Where do you want to take this next, my friend? Because we can go to the Leafs, we can go to the Colorado Avalanche. Where do you want to talk about? Morgan Rielly, or perhaps what's happening with these Colorado Avalanche?
Well, I think we got to talk about the Buds a little bit, get a little hyped
Let's
with
go.
Morgan Rielly
Let's go.
returning to action. Look, the
Thank you.
fact that the Maple Leafs have been able to be as productive as they've been with the amount of injuries they've had on the blue line. They go out and they acquire Connor Timmins. They go out and acquire Dryden Hunt, a couple of blue liners. Brody's back in the lineup now. Things are starting to fall together for these Maple Leafs, and Morgan Rielly is a huge piece of that. 0 goals on the season. I expect him to get his first in the next week, because I know he's itching to score some goals as well, but he's a crucial piece of the Maple Leafs lineup, and he's a crucial piece of that power play as well. Without him, I know Sandin jumped on there a little bit, but they started going with 5 forwards, and it started to work as well. But they obviously want Morgan Rielly on that top power play, facilitating to Matthews, Nylander, Marner, whoever it is. But he's a crucial part of the team, and I think a lot of Leaf fans, and us included, are excited for him to be back in the lineup.
16 points in 20 games this season still paces the Blue Liners for this Toronto Maple Leafs squad. Morgan Rielly has been one of the consistents, aside from the obvious pieces on this team over the last number of years. And look, we have been impressed. And if you haven't been impressed with what the Maple Leafs have been able to do defensively, just defensively, full stop, they have allowed the second least goals in the NHL this season, only being bested by the Boston Bruins. This is a big time ad. And now Morgan Rielly has the benefit of maybe playing less games this year, Steele. This could be huge for a guy who logs major minutes for this team come playoff time. He hasn't played since the 21st, since taking the bump from Kyle Palmieri. This is also a huge bump for your fantasy team. If you're a Morgan Rielly owner and you've had him on the IR, good for you, because getting rid of him doesn't make sense when, like Steele said, he is such a pivotal part of the power play and otherwise. Toronto, big time ad, and they didn't even have to give up any bodies. Very quickly, when we come back from the break, we have to talk about what's going on with the Colorado Avalanche. Nathan MacKinnon, news today. He is returning sooner than later. We'll break that down. Nichuskin re-injures an ankle. Let's talk about it. Big time bets as well on the way. But it is still the holiday season, people, and you need to be safe out on these roads. Today's episode is brought to you by the NHTSA. If you're hanging out with friends and putting back a few drinks like Steele and I like to do, you got to be responsible. A few can become too many. As the evening comes to an end and people start to head home, you think you're good. You can make it home okay, no big deal. But what are the odds you get pulled over? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? What about you could total your car and maybe worse, kill someone? Everyone knows about the risk of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that doesn't usually stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police are out there on our roads right now looking for impaired drivers to save lives and protect all of our families. So if you think you're okay to drive, After even a few drinks, think again, play it safe, plan ahead, and please get a ride. It only takes one mistake for you to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. Please stay safe on those roads this season.
Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day you don't want to miss out. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your favorite podcasts as well. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. And Flip, before we do get to the Colorado Avalanche, Alexander Barkov has scored the first goal for the Florida Panthers in that Montreal Canadiens game. So it's good to see him back on the score sheet, getting some more goals, his 7th of the season. But the Colorado Avalanche, probably the second team in the league that has dealt with the most injuries, maybe the top team right there beside the Columbus Blue Jackets as well. Nathan MacKinnon, like you said, returning sooner than we expected, maybe the first or second week of January, and Valeri Nichuskin has re-injured that ankle. Which player would you like to start with?
Well, actually, interesting enough, Jared Bednar, head coach of the Avs today, comes out and says he might even be ready by New Year's. He could be playing in the next couple of games. So this is an exciting thing for Colorado Avalanche fans. Look, he says that they got him coming back out of the holiday break. He could be playing between today and New Year's. This is big time news for fantasy owners of this player and for the Avalanche who continue to get it done. Look, I understand that they're sitting in 4th. They need some credit due. Gorgiev, we've talked about Rantanen. We've talked about others on that team who have held it down. Now they're getting healthy. Landeskog could be back in the next month or so as well, Steele. This is a team that you don't want to sleep on. You know I like to jump on good odds at good times. Now might be a very good time to sprinkle on these Colorado Avalanche, even if it's a 10 or 20 piece for the cup. You know they're going to be in there in that mix deal. But Nichuskin, very quickly, this was a big-time factor for them getting to the cup last season. He also, before he got injured this season, was effective. I believe, hold on, very quickly. How many points? Like, he was on fire when he got hurt. I'm missing the stats now. 9 tallies, 6 helpers in 20 contests during the playoffs last season. And he had another good start to this season. 7 goals and 5 assists in 7 games. He re-injures the surgically repaired ankle. Just when things start to look good for the Avs, they get dealt another rough hand. Keep your eye on Nichuskin, though. If you're an owner of this player, if you're running out of IR spots, he might be on the shelf for a very extended period of time. Might be time to bail on him and add another body that you can make a little bit more value from, Steele. I don't know what you think about that take.
That it's definitely a possibility. You know, I think a lot of people in the offseason, when they saw the type of contract Nichuskin get, were a little shocked, to say the least, of how high it was. But again, Joe Sakic, the Colorado Avalanche, did a phenomenal job of really developing Nichuskin's game, being a 200-foot player, being a name that could be in consideration for a Selke in the future as well, because of how great they developed him. But the injuries as he's dealt with throughout the playoffs, played, I believe, on a broken ankle. Has now broken his ankle twice this season alone, too. So very scary to see for Nichuskin. Maybe potentially see what happens, maybe get a trade done as of now. But you're right. If there's not enough spots on the IR, you might have to consider dropping him if he's out for long term. And you know, if people don't know this about Nathan MacKinnon, I actually traded him a few weeks ago for Jason Robertson and a first-round pick. So I think I got the better end of that deal. Nonetheless, I'm excited to see Nathan MacKinnon get back. But now let's transition into a few other trades I've made the past few weeks.
Let's do it.
Starting off with my keeper league. This trade you already know about, Flip, but I want to get, I want to let the listeners out there know and maybe get some feedback as well. I recently acquired Patrick Kane and a second-round pick for Roman Josi and a 14th round pick. The guy who had Patrick Kane wanted to upgrade his defenseman. My defense now are absolute dog water. Probably the worst defenseman in the league on my team right now. But I acquired Patrick Kane in the second round pick, which I think to me is a pretty good deal. And I base this off of the fact that Patrick Kane is going to be traded from the Chicago Blackhawks before the trade deadline. Teams have been reaching out. It seems like he's been linked to a bunch of cup contenders. And I think being in a keeper league, this is good for next year as well.
Exactly.
And getting that second round pick.
That's something that I think you and I can do actually even more of a good job explaining some of these dynasty angles. And you really hit the nail on the head there, because playing some of these angles, yes, it can be risky. But when you've seen what we've seen in the media about Patrick Kane, and you don't need to be a fantasy guru to look at his contract situation, the team he's playing on, his overall quality, and think, hey, let's take a shot on a player who should be going to a winner. And you already know his quality is still there. If he goes to the New York Rangers or otherwise, you know his value at least goes up a very significant amount at the minimum. So this is a move that I like, Steele, and I just want to hit our fantasy listeners with this. This is a good time to do what Steele is doing. Take a poke around. Have a look at some of the fantasy GMs in your league and what they need, especially if you're in the top few positions in your league and you're making a move from an advent point of power right now. Jump on some of these buy low targets, even some of that we mentioned. Alexis Lafreniere, hey, if he's a part of a piece of this trade, that is going to, Kane or otherwise, if they make a move, Lafreniere, that's a guy you want to get low now before his value goes up. Takeaway here, Steele, is before, I hope you have another trade because I like talking about these trades. And I'll get to my point about injured players. You have to be looking now, Steele. At this time of the season, we're about at the halfway mark. Now is a good time to make an add to your team or bolster it for the future.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did with the second trade too. Bang. I don't know if you saw my text message from last night, but I ended up acquiring...
Last night was a little hazy, Steele. A couple of wobblies, Did you say something about Dominic Kubalik, though?
Dominic Kubalik. I ended up acquiring Brent Burns for Dominic Kubalik and William Karlsson. And for me, this was a home run score. Love the fact I needed to bolster my blue line. I needed those defense points. Kubalik, again, one of those guys that once leaving the Chicago Blackhawks really just took off and is having a great season with the Red Wings. William Karlsson, again, another guy who's just a depth forward. 25 points on the season, a ton of shots, doesn't do much of blocks or hits, but that's not his specialty. Gets a couple special team points as well, but I needed some help on the blue line. I was looking to get a 2-for-1 trade done for a blue liner, so I ended up acquiring Brent Burns, which I needed a lot of help with, and I did this 2-for-1 because I know you wanted to mention him, but I'm going to bring him up right now. Max Pacioretty returning to the lineup not very soon, but
should be in the next month.
The next month at least, but we've read recently that he's not wearing a non-contact jersey again. He's wearing a regular jersey. He's practicing with his teammates. He's getting ready to go. He's getting ready to go in the lineup. This Hurricanes team is the real deal right now. Right there beside, they're on a 9-game win streak. Right there beside the Boston Bruins, Toronto Maple Leafs of the Eastern Conference. And Max Pacioretty is going to be a big part of them come playoff time. So I wanted to do this 2-for-1 trade so I could look into picking up Max Pacioretty off the waiver wire because of his return in mid to late January.
And we are going to get to, in more depth later in the week, a bunch of very high value fantasy pieces returning from injury. Max Pacioretty, Tom Wilson, Ondrej Palat, and others. These are the players that maybe you consider taking a shot on a trade now. Yeah, you might have to eat that for a couple of weeks, but Max Pacioretty is going to come back to a very advantageous situation and a very good team. And I like to pump our own tires, but here we go on the Carolina Hurricanes. Now they're starting to really flex their muscle, Steele. I'm not going to go down that well because I'm saving our energy for big-time bets. We're going to get there in a second. I hope all of the listeners out there, though, drop us some comments. What trades are you looking at? What considerations are you looking at for your waiver wire ads? Hit us up in the DMs. Hit us up in the comments. We are here to hold your hand and get your back through all of these situations, Steele, because it helps us get better at what we're doing as well. So much love, and make sure you drop us some feedback and some comments. We appreciate all that love.
Yeah, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Like Flip said, We're available Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. So much content coming out in the new year, 2023, right around the corner. But right around the corner right now, big time bets, where the money is made. We're hoping to start the new year off with a big bang here, make some big bucks as well. That is the plan, Flip. That is definitely the plan.
That's the plan.
Would you like to start us off with big time bets? I know you're fired up.
I would, and I also would like to say Happy New Year to all the listeners out there. We'll be back on Monday in the new year, but it has been a big year for this podcast. We are coming up on the 1-year anniversary, Steele, and seriously, I say it all the time, we'd be nowhere without our subscribers and listeners, and we are just getting warmed up. So I'm fired up. Now, I have a lock of the night that I'm going to be wagering heavily on. I don't say that a lot, and I hope it doesn't pooch me. But let me get there in a second. I'm going to start with what I've been doing the best. Over-unders. Predators at Ducks. I think immediately you know where I'm going with this. No, it's not a good idea to take either of these teams right now. Predators, 30th in goals per game scored. Ducks, 31st in goals per game scored. Yes, the Ducks allow a crooked amount of goals and shots. This feels like an under. I am going to hammer this game. Oh, wait. The last time they played, 2-1 final. Give me the under 6. It's only sitting at 6, so you're going to get a good odd on this, Steele. Hey, both teams are bad. They're bad. Nashville needs to be better, but I'm liking the under. This is a low-scoring game on tap, Steele. Under 6. The odd isn't out yet. We'll tweet it out. But like I said, the last time they go toe-to-toe, 2-1, I could see a 2-1, 3-2, even 4-2. I'll take the push. It is going to be a low-scoring game.
I think so as well. That is fair enough to say. The Nashville Predators have not been great offensively. Nonetheless, I am taking the Predators on the money line against the Anaheim Ducks. Why not? Definitely going to be minus 100 or minus 110 maybe. Should be pretty close to that. The odds aren't out right now, so we'll get that updated for you before game
Preds
time.
are at 150 currently, Steele. It's also an early start on Friday, which tends to have players not comfortable, so I like the under even more. But yeah, minus 150 right now for the Preds.
Perfect. So I'll take the Predators on the money line, minus 150. But my next two picks come from the same game.
Yes,
so I'll just rattle them off right now. I am taking the Devils on the money line. Plus 113 versus the Penguins. Look, earlier on in the season, you and I tried to, as many times as possible, bet against the Devils, and they continue to win. Now I'm betting for the Devils to win with good odds on the line, and I'm taking the plus 113 against these Penguins. A tough loss. Up 4-0 the other day to the Red Wings. Come back for the Red Wings, win 5-4 in overtime. So a tough loss for the Penguins. So I'm taking the Devils money line plus 113. But my lock of the night, I'm taking the Devils and Penguins game under 6.5 at minus 105 right now. The last 6 of 7 games for the Devils have been under the number. And I'm looking right now for the Penguins. I believe the last 6 of their 8 games have been under the number as well, besides that Red Wings game the other day. So that is my lock of the night. Devils, Penguins, under 6.5 at minus 105.
Tristan Jarry deserves a lot more respect than I think he gets. Again, in dedicated hockey, fantasy hockey circles, people know about Tristan Jarry. This guy, and you and I don't talk about this a lot because we have to focus on so many different teams and aspects in this league. Any hockey fan loves to watch international puck. And when NHL players are a part of Olympic tournaments, it's fun. And sometimes it's fun to project who would be the goalie. Tristan Jarry, realistically, would probably be right in the mix for the number 1 goaltender for Canada. And he deserves a lot more respect for how good he has been. Does he, being the starter for Canada, mean anything? No, but when he's performed the way he does, it does. And I'm going to go and put a little side bet on this with you, Steele, because 12-2-1, the New Jersey Devils are on the road. So that's not a good number for me to bet the Penguins. The Penguins are a good home team, 10-3-4. Both teams on losing streaks, like you mentioned. I'm feeling the Pens. You're feeling the Devils. This is a classic flip and steal side bet showdown. I've mentioned why I like the Pens this year at length. Just give me the Pens and let me explain my lock of the night, which is my favorite pick of the night. I alluded to it. I'm going to be hammering the Edmonton Oilers tonight, Steele, going up against the Seattle Kraken. The game against the Calgary Flames, what I saw from Stuart Skinner, it was maybe his stepping out game. 42 out of 43 shots on net he saved. He turned aside. That is the best game I've seen from Stuart Skinner, and this is what the Edmonton Oilers are missing. And I think they might now go on a nice little heater. Could it be a letdown game? Maybe. But coming off that big win against their big-time rivals in Calgary over the weekend, we're on a holiday heater, the last 2 nights, 10-6-1 on the road this season, the Oilers. And the last time they faced these Kraken, put a beat down on them, 5-3. It could have been 5-2 or 5-1. Oilers on the money line right now, early odds, juicy Steele, minus 120. The odd is going to drop for sure, but the Oilers tonight smack up the Seattle Kraken. That's my lock of the night, and you can thank me later. Let's hammer this one, people.
Look, I'm not sure the Kraken gets smacked here. I watched the Kraken Flames
another
game
side
the other
bet?
day. Could be another side bet. You've had the upper hand with the side bets so far this year, so
let's talk.
I could be looking to crawl back a little bit with these 2 bets Friday night. But I watched the Flames Kraken game. 3-2 win for the Flames. Low scoring game. I thought both goalies played, overall really good.
For sure.
I don't know if this was a stepping out moment for Stuart Skinner. I think there needs to be more consistency with his game, and I don't think one game really decides what's going to happen with his future. I think we need to see a little bit more down the road heading into the end of the regular season, even come post.
Stepping out in his future, though, are 2 different things, Steele. I'm just saying, I think he goes on a run now with this confident game against a big-time rival. But I hear
all right, well,
I just got to interject there. I got to interject. That's all.
No, fair enough. Definitely fair enough. And also, I didn't know if you saw this as well, but the Penguins, Chris Letang could be out for tomorrow's game. Looks like he's on
huge
day-to-day or injured reserve as of right now. But nonetheless, my lock of the night, again, the Devils and Penguins under 6.5 at minus 105. Flip, what was your lock of the night again?
The Oilers on the money line, sir, minus 120 currently, and we'll tweet out those updated odds.
Perfect. Oilers on the money line, Devils and Penguins under 6.5. Those are the lock of the night. Make sure you put them down, lock them in, make some money over the holiday season into the new year, 2023, around the corner. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Go check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. Biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts, just like this podcast right here. Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. You don't want to miss out. Share it with your family and friends. 2023, big things are happening for us. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Enjoy your New Year's Eve and your New Year. And we shall see you back here again on Monday.
Happy New Year, everybody.